All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Give me touching on the top prop bets today on both PrizePicks and Underdog. But first, just a quick recap from the previous slates that we had. So this was yesterday's slip, 3 for 6, kind of expected, honestly. Yesterday was a slate in which we weren't getting that many good prop bets, and that was the same for a couple of the NFL slips as well. But all in all, last week was a very good week. This was one that I gave you guys on Wednesday for a bet of the day. Another 5 out of 5. That's kind of getting annoying how many times we've hit a 5 out of 5 or a 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6. But all in all, another good week last week. Hopefully we can continue that into this week. And I do phrase it that way on purpose because right now I personally don't really like some of the prop bets that we are getting. Again, looking at hockey, we have one prop bet where the projection data likes the over slightly by 2.2. That's not a big edge, but that small difference doesn't get me excited. We got another one for David Montgomery right now where over 1.5 projection for reception is seemingly a good prop bet that we are getting. But all in all, that's more or less, I just don't like trusting that with David Montgomery at this point right now. All in all, though, 54% likelihood to hit, you can run with that. But that's just the theme that we're getting right now, is that we're not getting that many really good prop bets on either PrizePicks or Underdog for that matter. A little bit different on Underdog right now. We're getting one good college basketball prop where we can bet the over rebounds, and then Harrison Barnes for over 2.5 rebounds as well. We're at least getting 2 decent ones there. Maybe another decent one here with Joel Embiid where PrizePicks has already bumped up to 13, but all in all, kind of a tighter slate today. Now we can do a quick kind of game by game breakdown looking at the Bucks versus the Pistons. The Bucks are going to be healthy, good to go, but they are going against the Detroit Pistons. The issue with a matchup like this, it's like, who is going to be the player that goes off? Like, the Bucks should be able to feast in this matchup. It's a very easy matchup. Is it going to be Brook Lopez dominating? Is it going to be Giannis dominating? Or is it going to be kind of everyone dominating? That's kind of the issue. And right now, we're not getting any good Milwaukee Bucks props. For Detroit, they are a little bit banged up. If Isaiah Stewart sits, that does kind of muddy this situation because then we're probably looking at recently acquired Mike Muscala to get some more run. Obviously, we don't love that. Jaden Ivey is someone that, you know, I like as a player. I like his production with Cade Cunningham off the court, but all in all, I feel like the lines we're getting on him today are a little bit too thin, especially in a game that has the potential to be a blowout. Honestly, I really don't mind the lines that we're getting on Isaiah Stewart for 10.5 points or even his points, rebounds, and assists at 18.5. But when we look at the projected minutes, it's only 27. And to me, that's because the game has the potential to be a blowout. So all in all, it's probably not one we want to chase anyway. For the Cleveland-Orlando game, we're currently not getting any prop bets because these two guards are currently questionable. If they were to sit, Jalen Suggs and Markelle Fultz would be two players that get a big bump in their usage and in minutes as well. That's been kind of the theme. It's that when two of those guards sits, the other two are the two that benefits a decent amount. Wagner was kind of surprisingly active yesterday. We'll see if he sits on the back end of back-to-back today. That could also be a reason why we're not getting any props. And then also, it is worth noting, LeVert currently questionable as well. That changes that situation. Looking at the Sixers, man, Embiid should be able to go off against the Spurs. And for what it's worth, I actually don't mind Batum to have a good game as well. The Spurs are a matchup that we want to target, especially with bigs against. So heck, even Tobias Harris, where the day is kind of liking it. But all in all, like I don't mind Batum over 4 rebounds and Embiid over 34.5 points. Like, those are 2 decent ones given the matchup that we are getting with the Sixers versus the Spurs. For the Spurs, I don't want to touch any of the prop bets that we are getting. I do expect this game to be a blowout. So someone like Tyus Jones, someone like Wemby, those are 2 players that when the matchup's correct, I'm fine going with them. But all in all, I do worry about Wemby potentially getting in foul trouble against Joel Embiid. And then with that, I think Trey Jones and Wemby kind of correlate together. One of them has a good game. The other one's going to have a good game. So if I'm saying Wemby might not have a good game, I don't want to bet on Trey Jones. And then looking at Memphis versus Toronto, Jakob Poeltl is still out, so we're probably expecting Jonte Porter to still start. Memphis Tillman could sit, but they are still very banged up. And so the question here is, can Memphis keep the game close enough for long? And in the last game, it seemed like Vince Williams was well on his way to getting over his fantasy score line that was out there. And because the game ended up blowing out, Vince Williams only got 30 minutes in that game. If he gets his typical 35, 38 in that game, I do think he gets the over fantasy score. We know that's kind of the risk, though, with a team like Memphis right now with them being so banged up. And heck, for what it's worth, Luke Kennard is a player that I kind of like as well. But again, with Luke Kennard, it's the exact same situation. It's whether or not Memphis can keep the game close enough for long enough. He only played 30 minutes in that game. He misses over fantasy score, I think, by 2, like another bucket. And would he have played many more minutes? Probably not. Maybe another 2 minutes here or there, but all in all, that does add up. So if you think the game's going to stay close, and I would argue it could, it's a 7-point spread. Maybe we're looking at Jaren Jackson Jr. in a game stack. Maybe we're looking at Luke Kennard over points or something like that. Maybe not points and rebounds. But the issue with Luke Kennard, he's not shooting the basketball enough. So for me, it's probably just Vince Williams in some capacity. I'm probably just looking at him for PRA again. But it's starting to tick up. It's like Vegas realized that they were a little bit wrong after the first game. And even though the lines have been kind of correct for the under the last 2 games, it does seem like Vegas kind of realized, based off the data that we have now available, that he is the player that does benefit the most, which is what we thought. But all in all, to me, 24.5 points, rebounds, and assists, that does feel a little bit too high when we're getting it at 22.5. So for me, I don't feel the need to go out of my way to target that. But then again, in a game stack, if you guys were doing that, I wouldn't blame you either. So looking at Toronto, I don't actually mind the Manuel Quickly over rebounds and assists. This is going to be a good matchup for him as well. And really the rest of the Toronto Raptors. Barnes is someone that could have a good game. RJ Barrett has definitely stepped up with his time with Toronto. The only worry that I have with him is that he is very much shot dependent. I don't know. To me, I'd rather just go with Quickly at 29.5 PRA. But you could make a strong argument to do both of them. Again, if we're betting on this game staying close, I really think Quickly is going to have a good game, be a big part of that. The issue is the last couple of games, rebounds have been a little bit low. Points have not been as high. All in all, it's kind of what you would expect against New York. They got blown out in that game. Chicago, that was just kind of a bad game for him. Did have the minutes though. And then for what it's worth, looking at RJ Barrett, he has been shooting the basketball a lot and shooting the basketball pretty well. If you guys want to continue to roll the hot hand there, you could. All in all, I don't mind it. Then I do think it's worth calling out Jonte Porter, who has been getting around 20 minutes. Decent matchup going against Memphis. If he has a good game, that wouldn't be shocking. But I don't think we're going to get prop bets for him, so probably not worth mentioning. So we do have an interesting spot looking at Charlotte versus Minnesota. The Hornets could be without LaMelo Ball, and if they're without LaMelo Ball, we already know what to do. Terry Rozier is going to have a good game. Nick Richards currently a game time decision. If he sits, PJ Washington probably going to start at the 5 then, and we actually saw Brandon Miller really have a good game last game in that absence. So to me, Minnesota has kind of been a stay away. They are 14.5 point favorites. That being said, LaMelo Ball really hasn't had a minutes limit, and to me, his assist at 6.5 does seem to be very low. At the same time, you'd probably be better off just doing points and assists at 27.5. At the same time, in a game that's projected to be a blowout, it does feel like we'd probably be forcing it a little bit. Minnesota's playing well, and we have LaMelo Ball projected to get 32 minutes. That's probably because the game's projected to be a blowout. If it stays close, I do think he'd be able to crush this over. He's been playing well. Really hasn't had a minutes limit, so I wouldn't hate that. But all in all, would feel like we're forcing it a little bit. I am curious as to if we're getting any good prop bets for Minnesota, because Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns get a good matchup. And so let's see. No, I don't want to do rebounds and assists for Towns. Don't want to do Mike Conley, points, rebounds, and assists. Maybe Rudy Gobert, points, rebounds, and assists. But you guys are seeing the theme today. It's that we are getting some decent prop bets that I could get behind, but not any that are like a 54% likelihood to hit. None that have like a strong likelihood to hit. That's kind of the issue. I mean, that typically does happen on Mondays. Mondays are typically a light day for me, and I think that's what's going to occur again, especially with the lack of like injury news, with the lack of injury related edges that we are getting on today's slate. To me, it just feels like a lighter. And then continuing on, we're looking at Boston versus Dallas. Al Horford, game time decision. He's expected to play. Set out yesterday on the front end of a back-to-back. Drew Holiday, truly a game time decision. It is important because this is a pretty good matchup for Boston, especially the bigs like Porzingis and Derek White for that matter. But Porzingis had himself a very good game last night, and his points, rebounds, and assists going against Dallas, that's been a matchup we've been wanting to target. I would argue is a little bit too low. The projection data would also agree with that, and this is one of the highest point totals on the slate tonight. And so if it is going to be that high scoring, I do expect Porzingis to have a good game. He does get a bump to me if Drew Holiday were to sit as well, because we just see the usage. That's one less player on the court, right? You got Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Tatum, and Porzingis. You add in Drew Holiday in there. Obviously, that money's up the situation. So to me, I do think he gets a slight bump with Drew Holiday off the court as well. But this is baked in the game being a high-scoring game and the game staying close enough for long enough. For Dallas, I'm glad we're not getting, we are getting some prop bets for them, but I don't really want to target Dallas against Boston. To me, Dallas has just kind of become one of those teams that I personally just want to stay away from. I don't feel the need to target them. We see Derek Lively points. The projection data doesn't like that. So in all, I'm perfectly fine staying away from this. Maybe Kyrie has a good game going against his former team. The data is favoring that. If you guys want to run with that, you could. That'd be the only one that I would feel decent about. And so for Chicago versus Phoenix, we do have news that Levine is going to sit. We have seen this situation already thus far this season. Caruso gets a slight bump. Patrick Williams gets a slight bump. We can look at those two. Kobe White is a player that really stepped up in that absence. And I will say the lines that we are getting on Kobe White do feel to be a little bit too low. Again, with Levine out, we saw him really crush. He was someone that was getting like 38 minutes per game. To me, if he does get, he's projected to get 37 minutes, he should be able to get this over. This is probably the one I like the most thus far. But again, only about a 52.3% chance to hit, or 0.5% chance to hit. Not the best odds there. DeMar DeRozan, I don't like trusting DeMar DeRozan because he's so points dependent, and all of his points come from 2-pointers. It's just not a fun prop bet, but all in all, not terrible. Like maybe in a game stack, you could run that out. From there, I was hoping we would get some Patrick Williams props because he is someone that has stepped up in the absence of Levine in the past, but I don't want to speculate what the lines will be. From there, for Phoenix, all the lines that we're getting for them seem to be correct. And then looking at the last game on the slate, probably the best game on the slate, Trae Young is going to be out in that game. Hunter's still out, so we're going to be looking at all the same players that we have been, and then going against the Kings. Kings are kind of healthy. Well, they are healthy. So in terms of stacking opportunity, this game has the best likelihood for us to have some good stacks. We're seeing Clint Capella for over points and assists. Personally, guys, I don't like targeting Clint Capella because we can't depend on his minutes to be there. And so I don't particularly like Clint Capella betting him. So I'm going to stay away from that. Jalen Johnson is someone minutes-wise has been crushing. But he's someone that we need to get the minutes there. And so for me, I just want to take a peek really at all the PRA props that we're getting for this squad, because I'm interested in Murray, Bogdanovich, and also Jalen Johnson. So Bogdanovich at 27.5 in a game that I think has a great chance to be high scoring and stay close. I do like this over. The issue that we're seeing here is that, man, it's been brutal, but you got to look at the matchups. Cleveland, Miami, Orlando, 3 teams that you wouldn't want to be targeting too heavily on for the most part. And so if he is going to start tonight, this is a much better matchup for him, so I don't mind that. We look at DeJounte Murray, and I'm a little bit worried about his PRA because the line seems to be correct. We saw in the previous couple of games that it was a little bit too low, so we could actually bet his over fantasy score. That was one of the better ones. I'm interested to see where that line comes out to be, but all in all, that might be a little bit too thin. And same thing with Jalen Johnson. Like, the only way I can end up on those 3 prop bets is going to be in a game stack, and the data does agree. Like, the over is slightly favorited there, so if you guys want to run out a game stack, that's fine, but let's see if we have any opportunity to even do that. Sabonis over points, rebounds, and assists, that's probably a little bit too high. De'Aaron Fox, maybe a little bit too high, but the matchup is not, I don't know. I don't really want to do that either. So you guys can see it's a very slim board that we have today. Not really many edges. There's like one prop bet that I like NBA wise that we are getting a decent edge on. Now, real quickly, I do want to take a peek at some maybe potential edges that we are currently getting across different sports. We see Signer, I don't know. His aces, that's one off. Typically speaking, I don't mind targeting that. Like, there should not be a 1 ace difference in tennis, just like in PGA there shouldn't be a stroke difference. So decent edge there, all in all, not terrible, but we are getting some decent prop line differences right now between PrizePicks and Underdog for yardages. So all in all, we are seemingly getting an edge there. And then if we flip it around, not as big of an edge. So, some slight discrepancy. And then just real quickly, looking at some college basketball props that we are getting, we see Andrew Carr, pretty good under bet for a fantasy score, but that's a better bet on Underdog, so I wanted to call that one out. Then I do want to call it another slight edge that we are getting as well, just in terms of prop line difference. So Kevin McAllister, this is an okay middling opportunity. The projection data says that the PrizePicks line is correct. So again, a better bet on Underdog to bet the under there. So we are getting 2 decent edges on Underdog. Those 2 college basketball props, I think we can run out there confidently. If you guys want to take advantage of these slight discrepancies that we are getting as well, by all means, go for it. But Andrew Carr, under fantasy score on Underdog. Under his fantasy score on Underdog is also a pretty good one there as well. And then before I get into the bet of the day, we did get a refresh on some of the fantasy score props. And so just showing those 2 guys, Brooke Lopez for under fantasy score is one that's kind of popping up. I actually like this one, Isaiah Stewart for over fantasy score. That's what I'm going to put in the bet slip for the day because I think that correlates. As long as the game can stay close enough for long enough, I'm fine with that. We're only getting props for 2 of the games, but it does seem like we have a slight stacking opportunity for that game. Jane Ivey over fantasy score, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart. Then you could run out maybe Chris Middleton as a run back option. Hopefully the Bucks don't have their A game, I guess, and the Detroit Pistons are able to keep the game close enough for long enough. That would be the bet there. All in all, though, I think Isaiah Stewart's a good one. But again, do want to call this out. We are not getting really any EV prop bets, and so that's the issue today. It's that the board is very... So again, I do want to call it that we'll be running out those two unders on Underdog for college basketball. We got Carr for under his fantasy score, and then doing the exact opposite. This one's at 37.5 or so on Underdog, betting the under there. Good middling opportunity. Then running out Isaiah Stewart for over fantasy score, again, hoping the game stays close enough for long enough. And then Kobe White over his points, rebounds, and assists. We have seen that he has stepped up in the absence of Zach LaVine to get this over. This is a bet on him playing those 37 minutes and not shooting the basketball terrible in this game. And going against Booker and Beal, I don't exactly expect that. So all in all, not the best board. That's why I'm giving a 3-slip bet out on the day. You guys know by now, hate giving out 3-slip bets on PrizePicks. They're really not worthwhile. You're better off obviously making a 3-slip bet like this on Underdog, but we're not getting those prop bets available to do that on Underdog today. That's going to be all for today's video, guys. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. I do appreciate that. If you want access to any of the tools that you saw in this video, head on over to 9to5sports.com. You get access to the PrizePicks and Underdog cheat sheet available for just $10 a month. Thanks for watching. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.